Amazing Saturday. I know it's a little cloudy for some of us, but that's okay. We need the rain. The rain makes the flowers grow, and we need that because it's beauty, and we love beauty. I'm Adrianne Hamilton Butler, your host of OnWard, and you're listening to OnWard on WCEG Talk Radio and WCEG Network. WCEG is the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. You are listening to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, on the WCEG network, and at WCEG Talk Radio. And hey, check us out on YouTube as well. Again, follow us on our network, WCEG, and on WCEG Talk Radio. OnWard is all about how do we move forward from the unexpected, the unwanted, I am blanking right now, but all of the uns that happen in our life. No, but seriously, it's all of the things that are challenges to us that sometimes keep us blocked. And how do we move forward? How do we move onward? How do we move onward in a way that brings us peace? How do we move onward in a way that really allows us to live our authentic life? So that's what this show is all about. I want to say that this is the last show of the season, but I'm hearing that there may be some fun things going on this summer, so stay tuned for that. But I wanted to do a special show, thinking about the summer and taking a break, because a lot of us do take breaks during the summer. We take a mental break because we want to enjoy the sunshine and be out and about. Some of us who work as teachers or other seasonal employees were able to take a break from work for a while, to spend time with our families and travel. And so during this break, I was thinking, what could we really do to improve ourselves and move onward? And one of the things I thought about was daring ourselves to do something that we always wanted to do, something that challenges us to be.
She'll be right back.
We have technical, but ladies, if you would introduce yourself, starting with Miss Paula. Can you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. Happy to be here. As you can see, my name is Paula Hamilton. I am a Hamilton sister and very excited to be here. I do reside in the beautiful city of Atlanta, Georgia, and I work here in the city in the space of communication consulting. I am absolutely delighted to be here.
Awesome. And I am Marvina Hamilton. I am the youngest of the Hamilton sisters, the Hamilton siblings, period. I am located in High Point, North Carolina. I am a recruiting specialist for a Fortune 250 financial services company, and just delighted to be here with my brilliant, phenomenal sisters.
So good morning again. You all lost me for a second, and that's what's amazing about hosting with your amazing sisters, because they knew on cue to go ahead and introduce themselves. So thank you, Paula. Paula is here locally, and I think she said that she works for a local organization that helps people to communicate better. And Marvina is in North Carolina. Thanks for joining us this morning. By the way, what's the weather like there?
It is a little overcast, but it's going to be a beautiful day because I bring the sunshine anyway. So
absolutely.
She does. Yes, she does.
That's mine. Thank you for saying that, Marvina, because one of the nice things about doing a show with your sisters is you get to see that even though you're from the same family, you have different personalities. And you work together to get things done in an amazing way. And that's why I wanted us to come together, especially for this last show when we're talking about daring to be you, bold, brave, and beautiful, which, by the way, I think all of us are beautiful.
absolutely.
Even those of you who are watching, I know you are beautiful. Even if you're just waking up and you haven't put your face on yet, you still look amazing. Thanks for joining us. But really, how do we take time for ourselves, especially as women, to move forward in our lives? All of us have experienced challenges. You know, the interesting thing about social media is that everybody's life looks amazing, but we all know that either we've gone through something, we're going through something, or we're going to go through something. And so that's what this show is dedicated to. So I want to start with my sisters to ask, what is the one thing that you have overcome in your life that you're most proud of? And what did it take for you to overcome it, to navigate that challenge, and to be where you are today in this space? I'll start with you, Marvina.
Thank you. So I would say the biggest, I've had a lot of challenges, but I would say the biggest would be, I think I was here a year ago, Adrianne, with you talking about my sobriety. So I'm approaching 9 years of sobriety this Thursday. So that is probably the biggest thing, because it's been so freeing, and it's allowed me to just be able to experience life, and understanding that it's okay to experience life on life's terms.
Yes.
So that's just opened the door almost to allow me to overcome so many other challenges. So that's been the main thing.
And so when you think about and look back on overcoming and being sober now for 9 years, which is amazing, what was that first step? Because every journey begins with that first step.
Yes, it does. Yes, it was me telling myself to keep going. I had come to a crossroads, literally. I was in the car with a mobile crisis counselor, and before that, it was just acknowledging that I needed help. So that's first and foremost. But what really pushed me into the trajectory of getting sober and maintaining sober was I had the option to either keep going to a detox facility that I had contacted them and requested that they take me to, or get off on the exit when I saw High Point and say, hey, you know what, just take me home, which I had asked her to do. And she said, are you sure? And in that split moment, when I tell y'all God talked to me, he said, oh, no, you don't. And I told her, you know what, keep going. And that's been my mantra pretty much from there. It's like anytime I want to give up, it's no, keep going, Marvina, stay the course, keep going.
And just one more thing before I move on to Paula, that the whole keep going, because that's a daily, even moment by moment thing, right?
Absolutely.
Because every moment of your life, you're faced with a decision.
Yeah.
And so tell us about, you know, even on that journey, we talked about the first step, but on that journey, were there those moments when you said, you know, this is kind of hard. I don't know if I want to keep going.
Oh God, yes. And that's where having a support system is extremely important. And for me, that was allowing people to help me, because it was always, I can do this. I have it myself. You know what? Don't worry about it. And so that's where, especially in recovery programs, they want you to get a sponsor. And now I understand the importance of that. Somebody who can walk that walk with you, especially someone who's been on the same journey, who can relate to what you're going through. That's extremely important. Somebody who's going to hold you accountable for your actions, but it still takes you making that call before you mess up, you know, before you backslide, not after. So yeah, it's been that support system, building up my network.
And that is so important. I like what you said about people who've been through what you've been through, because so many of us sit on the sidelines and are wanting to offer advice about how people should move forward and things, but we've never experienced what they've experienced. And so it's kind of interesting, because how can we even begin to show empathy and compassion when we have no idea of what you've been through or what you're going through?
Yeah, when I tell you, I felt like I found my tribe when I was in the recovery rooms, like, wow, yeah, I'm not alone and I'm not crazy, and people are going through the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's another key point, is feeling like you're not alone when you're going through life's challenges. Paula, so again, the same question that I asked Marvina, share with us a challenge that you're really proud of that you've overcome.
I was thinking as I listened to Marvina, And many, as she said, there are so many. I think it's appropriate in this environment, being with my family, being with my sisters, to be very candid and open about challenges with relationships in our own family. And when Marvina said, having that moment of God speaking,
Yes.
I've had some challenges in my past with my relationship with my mother. And I remember as a teenager, the moment that God spoke to me and said to me, forgive your mother. And in that moment, I was able to release so much personal pain and difficulties that were very unique to my relationship with my mother. And I am grateful every single day for that.
Yes.
And it's been an amazing journey to build that relationship with her. And in doing so, I really think it also helped to strengthen all of my relationships within my family. And I believe changed the trajectory of my life, because if you don't have those strong family bonds, it can really impact you in everything you do.
Yes.
So it's a journey every single day, really, that I am incredibly grateful for.
Yes. And so thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable with that. And I want to talk a little bit about forgiveness, because that is the biggest barrier to us moving forward, moving onward in our lives. Someone has done something that has wounded us significantly. How did you forgive? How do you forgive even now other people who have wounded you?
Well, for me, again, it's two things. It's one, it's always assessing myself and my role, because in every relationship, there's two sides to it.
Yep.
And it's important to not shift blame to others, but to really take a step back and assess yourself.
Yeah.
And that's something that's hard. It's hard work to look at yourself. And my work that I do every day in the space of communication,
Yes.
I'm very intimately involved with that. So it's a work in progress to, again, always take a step back and to recognize, as you started off saying, we all have our own challenges,
Right.
and having empathy for that and respect for that. So for me, that's a really big part of forgiveness. Is it's not always this idea that somebody's doing something intentionally to hurt.
That part.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's what I was
Yes.
thinking, Paula. Yep.
Because 9 times out of 10, it's not intentional at all.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, it really isn't about you specifically.
Yes.
Right.
It's about their own challenges that have not been reconciled or dealt with. And so because I'm in pain, this is how I deal with my pain.
Yeah.
And my pain, unfortunately, is going to hurt you or someone else.
Yes.
And so I think you're right. When we're able to step back and say, hey, this is not about me specifically in most situations, it allows me to have more compassion and empathy for the person and to see them for who they really are at that moment.
Yep.
And to have conversations that will allow for openness and forgiveness. I love that. So here I am, I ask myself this question as well, what challenge? And I would have to say, I think the biggest challenge, and I've had many, but I think one of the challenges was, I have 2 sons that people see. They see Julian and they see Paul. But in between Julian and Paul, there was a 3rd child, who would have been the 2nd child, but his name was Matthew. We named him when I was pregnant. And Matthew was stillborn on his due date. So I went to the hospital thinking I was about to give birth to this beautiful little boy, Matthew. And the main name meant gift from God. But he was born stillborn. And it really changed me as a person, because up to that time, I thought everything was going as planned. You know, we were going to have our 2 kids and everything was going to be great. And I was going to have this child. So when I realized that things don't go as planned, that things are unexpected, that you do feel immense pain that you have never anticipated in your life, and that you've got to work yourself through it, because I had to go home to another child who had no idea what was going on. And it wouldn't be fair to that child to continue to live in that pain. But the other thing it did, and I've shared this with a couple of people, is that it turned me into someone who was very fearful. I had Paul a year later, and I was afraid. I was always afraid that something would happen. And so because of that fear, I limited him. You know, I wouldn't even let this child walk to the bus stop by himself. I would watch him walk to the bus stop because I was always afraid. And it made me afraid to live my life, to be happy. I felt like I didn't deserve to be happy. You know, maybe I did something to cause this child to be born deceased. And so I had to go through a lot of therapy for that. I had to be honest about my own fear. I had to be honest about what it was doing to my relationship with my spouse, and my relationship with my children. And a lot of times those are things that you don't want to vocalize and put into the world because you think you're weak. And as a Black woman, I didn't want to be perceived as weak. And so it took many years to overcome that. And frankly, it took this child, my second child, going all the way to Arizona for me to release him into the world. Because then I realized that I wasn't there to see him walk down the street every day, that I had to trust God. And so I think often about Matthew and his name. And I think about really how he was a gift from God, because he allowed me to see God in a new way. That God isn't always the God of the good, but God is really the God of things that happen in your life that are unexpected, and that he will get you through them when you allow him to. Yeah. One of the things I heard both of you say is that you heard God's voice telling you to have a response that was different than the response that you wanted. Talk a little bit about listening versus not listening, because God's response to us 9 times out of 10 will be the response that is different than the one we would have done. You know, we would have not have forgiven. We would have acted out of fear. We would have continued to drink. So Paula, talk a little bit about what it really means to listen and to lean in when we feel that God is telling us to move forward, even when we don't want to.
Well, for me, it's really important to be quiet. I think it's very easy to get busy, to make your mind busy, to get distracted. There's so many things that we can so easily get distracted by. So that's always my first step, is to be quiet and to recognize that it's not going to be a quick fix. And that I have to continue to listen, because it's not just this, one time that God speaks and then he never speaks again.
Right.
But I also, and I hope this isn't shifting too much focus from what you said or your question, but what really struck me about what you were talking about is recognizing many times when God is speaking that we're having to deal with some kind of loss. And I've been really reading a lot recently about how important it is to grieve our losses, and they can be losses as very significant as losing a child or a parent or any person. but sometimes it's just grieving the loss of things that you hold tightly to.
Yes.
And so that these things that God is speaking to us about oftentimes are things that we hold tightly because maybe we feel like we're not worthy, or we feel like, that's just who I am and I'm not going to let that go. And how dare you, God, ask me to let that go.
Right.
Because I have every right to hold on to this.
Yes.
So I think that there's some intimate relationship between, hearing God and really thinking about loss.
Yes.
And what that looks like and feels like.
I agree with that. And I agree with loss. Loss, like you said, it could be the loss of someone you love, but it could also be the loss of a job. It could be the loss of your own youth.
Right.
And your vigor, the ability to be mobile. And when that happens, you don't know how to deal with it. And you want to attack it your way. What God is saying is you said, be still for a moment. Stop being so busy. You don't, Marvina, you talked about finding your tribe, right? And so we need that support. We need people in our lives who we trust and who can help us to navigate through things. But at the same time, there's that moment when we have to step away.
Yes.
And I know that you've done that. Talk a little bit about how you have made space for that quiet in your life to be able to help you to move forward and navigate some of your own challenges.
Sure. I am all about creating space for myself. One thing I've recognized about me, I'm an introvert, right? So when I have to be in an extroverted mode, I'm able to do that for a little bit of time, but I know when it's time to remove myself because I get overwhelmed. And that's very stressful for me. And in those moments, it is hard for me to hear God. So I spend a lot of time by myself. Now that the boys are older, I have a lot of quiet time. But I have to be very mindful of that because with me working from my home, not having to get outside of my house every day, my interaction with others is very limited. So I do have to be mindful and be very intentional too about not having too much quiet time because I really relish my quiet time. So like being out in nature, just being by myself, being alone, it's helpful for me to just gather my thoughts. I can tell when I'm not in a good space with God because I can't function properly. It's hard to explain it, but just things seem kind of chaotic, and it can go where I'll like look around suddenly in my room and things are a little out of order and disarray. I'm like, okay, I'm recognizing now that I need to pause, like step back a little bit, regroup, get things in order. Because if I don't, things can get messy. That kind of correlates. They can get messy with my life really quickly.
Yes.
So I just have to be very mindful of that. And I just love that God time. Like in the mornings, I have talked to both of you about this. Like praying is important, but there's something so intimate about getting on my knees.
Yes.
And praying to God and just having that quiet time and reading my Bible and building that relationship with Him. In the past, I've wanted so much to build relationships with others. And it's like, I have to be that mindful and intentional about my relationship with God.
Right.
Because He's my light, like He lives within me. And so I want to honor that now. And that just helps life be so much better, so much more peaceful.
I agree with that. I agree that when you step away from that time with God, that you do feel it. You feel chaos within yourself. You feel sometimes maybe lonely. You feel like things are not happening. And it's really interesting because for me, it tends to happen when I start getting busy at work.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I get up and I'm saying to myself, I got to go to work. I have to get dressed. I have to go. And I'm realizing, I'm putting the chaos of work ahead of the peace
Right.
that God's going to give me to prepare me for what's going to happen that day.
Mhm.
And so that's when I'm pulled back to Paula's point about taking that time to just be still for a moment. And it's funny how we'll sacrifice that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of peace to step immediately into chaos.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's the one thing we have in common. And, I want to do a little shout out, because I think we can all agree that we had a praying grandma.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
And I look back to my praying grandma, who prayed with me, who prayed for me, all of us,
Mhm.
who then in turn, passed that on to our mom, who in turn passed that on to us.
Yes.
And we're passing it on to our own children, so that hopefully they can continue to have that peace in their lives as they're going forward with, of course, all of the things that they're going to encounter, because they will encounter them. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that, we still want to work on, because we're all a work in progress. I'm willing to say, I don't know if y'all are, but I'm 57 years old. It got here very quickly, more quickly than I ever anticipated. I was 25 yesterday.
Right.
But as I look at my life, it is nowhere near over. I still have a lot of life within me to live. And with that in mind, I want to be better. And so I'm looking at the things ahead of me and how I just want to live the life that God has purposed me to live.
Yep.
And to be brave and bold about it, to not be ashamed, to not hold my head down. And so as you're looking at yourselves and what's ahead of you, what's something that you really want to work on? Where and what area do you think, I really want to be brave and bold in this? And what are some of the ways that you're thinking about or daring yourself to move forward? I'll start with you, Paula.
Well, one of the challenges that I did not mention, and it's a challenge that is progressing in my life, is a physical challenge. I do have a neuromuscular disorder, and it's degenerative. It's only going to weaken my muscles over time. It's very specific. It impacts the muscles of my hands and my feet. And so for me, I have a real appreciation for my physical abilities, recognizing, as I said, that this is going to continue to deteriorate for me. So I'm trying to really leverage the abilities and do as much as I can. So for the first time, I'm not going to be running, but I will be walking in the peach tree. I'm excited about that. And just trying to discover the activities that will continue to allow me to do things, to be active. I don't want to sit and allow this to take over my life. I still have a lot of life and mobility in me, and I want to use it to its full advantage. So that's where I'm at, is finding those activities that allow me to leverage the abilities that I have.
So let me ask you this, because, there's the obvious challenge of the fact that there is a progression.
Yes.
But is there a barrier also that may be emotional or mental, as you're looking at yourself in managing this physical challenge? Because you were saying, I need to find things to keep me active. But are there also things that you need to do to keep you emotionally grounded, mentally grounded? You're working, you're in a relationship, you have friends, and so are there things that you're doing even when you're not at your best, to help you to feel like, I can still live my life to the fullest?
Absolutely. Part of it for me is having a daily ritual of reading and meditating and having quiet time and connecting with God, and understanding that, this is what God has intended for me to have for whatever reason. And, I'm not, again, going to let that limit me in some regards. I hope that people seeing me put myself out there in front of them and them being able to physically see that clearly there's some challenges that I have, that in some way, maybe it inspires somebody, that I'm not going to hide myself because of these physical limitations I have. So when I have my down times, it's amazing to me that somehow there's a spirit that lifts me. I'm grateful for it. I don't know where it comes from many times, but it does absolutely lift me and put me out there, and I'm able to move on. But I talked earlier about grieving, losses, and I'm having to grieve this loss in my own way.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, like I said, I'm just so grateful that I have a spirit that's within me that says, this is nothing for you to just hide yourself and remove yourself from the world. You still have something to do.
I like that. And that really ties into what it means to be bold and brave.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when things happen to us, we hide because we don't want anyone to know that we're experiencing a challenge. We don't want anyone to know that we're struggling with something. We want to appear that we've got it all together. And I'm not saying that we need to go out into the world and hang our head, but being brave and bold means that there's a good work occurring within us, right? And so allow that good work to show itself by us being upfront, out and about, saying, you know what, I can overcome this. God is with me. He has given me the strength to be out there and to work, to travel. So Paula doesn't talk a lot about this. I'm gonna say something about you, Paula. So what Paula doesn't talk about a lot is that she really is a world traveler. She never posts anything on social media. She doesn't tell anyone.
I tell y'all.
Yeah, we have to ask Paula, where are you at?
Been to almost every country on the planet. But I say all this to say that even with her physical limitations, and you're a petite thing, that you manage, that you get out there. And many of us would be afraid. We would be afraid that, I have this disability and I can't speak the language. What's going to happen to me? So how do you manage that when you have to go out to all these different countries? You're bringing all these things with you for your job. You have to get in front of people. What helps you to be able to do that in a way where you're able to stand up as a Black woman too, and really show yourself to be brave in these situations?
I believe wholeheartedly that it's not me that's showing up, it's God. And that's what I lean into, is that I am fully representing God. And if I don't embrace that idea, then I'm not really embracing the life that I have. So it's God that's showing up every day in front of those people and getting on those planes and doing those adventures. I just happen to be the vehicle through which that's happening. And I am just incredibly grateful for it.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But Marvina, same for you as you're looking forward in your life as a work in progress. What is it, that one thing, maybe two, that you're like, I want to work on this and really attack it in just this brave way?
Yeah, for me, it's being vulnerable. That's the key thing. I have a very strong wall up for various reasons. And what you don't realize when you're putting a wall up to keep people from coming in, you're also preventing yourself from being able to make moves that you want to move. So it's it's starting to, in a smart way, and of course, leaning on God for his guidance and direction,
Yeah.
but start moving some of those bricks down. And being okay being vulnerable. I'm approaching
Yeah.
50, right? I'm joining y'all's club in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not going to be afraid to tell people I love them and to put myself out here and just enjoy life, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like there's just so much world out here. There's so much life. If I'm not going to be afraid to speak to someone in the store, if they don't talk back to me, that's okay,
It's
you know,
okay.
because there's been a time where it's like, well, I'm not going to speak to somebody because they may not speak to me back, and then
Right.
I'll feel bad. No, I'll smile, strike up a conversation, you know, whatever God puts on my heart to do, I'm going to be vulnerable and just do that, because this journey is short. That's what I'm learning.
Yes. Oh my
Short.
gosh. Yes.
It's too short, and I don't need to add any additional hindrances to making progress, you know?
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it is what it is. If I tell someone I love them and they don't say it back to me, I've done my part and I feel good about that. It is what it is. If I tell someone.
Yeah. So, you know, I love what you just said, because a lot of times the reason we're not brave and bold in how we live our life is because we are making it about ourselves, right?
Right.
Oh, if I say hi to someone and that person doesn't say hi to me or say hi to me in a certain way, I'm offended, right? Because we have an expectation of how someone else should respond to us, rather than saying, you know what, God, you put it in my heart to be this person who's friendly, and it's okay.
Right.
You know, that's who I am. I'm a friendly person. That's what you asked me to be in this life. And however people respond, they respond. But you know, what's interesting is that if you put yourself out there to be vulnerable, to be kind, people may not respond at that moment, but they remember that someone was kind to them.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. We're seed planters.
Yeah.
We're not going to always, you know, even with your kids, right? You know,
what it is. If I tell someone I love them and they don't say it.
Yeah, you can. I look at my own sons. I and James, we laid a foundation. Where they take off from there, I do not know. But that's what we do, especially when God puts it on our heart to do something to be positive in someone else's life. For me, I think it's learning to be authentic in the moment. I'm known as someone who is very patient and kind, overly kind. But overly kind can also mean that you don't always say what's on your mind. That you're very reserved, and that you hold on, and that is not being brave, and it's not being bold. What it is that you know, you're trying to preserve yourself because, like Marvina said, you don't want to be hurt or what have you. But when you're authentic in the moment, you can say what needs to be said in a way that is honoring to yourself and to the other person.
Yeah.
And that you're not expecting a certain response, but what you're saying is, hey, this is how I feel in this moment, you know? And if you don't do that, what tends to happen is you'll let it build up until it comes out in a way that's not pleasant.
Right.
It's not honoring to you, and it's not honoring to the other person, because they didn't know that you had those feelings until it was too late. And so that's one thing that I want to work on, is how to be my authentic self in the moment, to stop and think about the fact that this person may not have even known that he or she did something that wounded me, first of all. But when I discuss it, acknowledging that I may not get the response that I think I should get, but just putting it out there in the hopes of being healing that it will heal our relationship and allow our relationship to move forward. So that's one of the things that I want to work on in terms of being brave enough to say what needs to be said in the moment.
Yeah.
So in the short time that we have left, I want to talk about, this Dare to Be You challenge that we're going to have this summer. We're asking all of you who are listening, who are checking us out on social media, to think about what's holding you back from being brave and bold. What's holding you back from being the person that you really want to be? A lot of times we allow ourselves to get caught up in the busyness of work, the busyness of being moms. Marvina, you and I both are moms to 2 boys.
Yep.
Now 2 men.
Right.
The busyness of being married, the busyness sometimes of all of our social activities. The word of the day is, I'm too busy. And sometimes it sounds great, but really when you say you're too busy, it means that you're not making time to be your best self.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we want to do this summer is challenge you to think about how you can be bold and brave in your life. What is it that God is really calling you to do in your life? So I want to just take a couple of minutes, Paula and Marvina, to think about something really big, maybe small, that you would like to do this summer, to focus on. That's kind of a challenge for you. We talked about kind of our own mental and emotional challenges, but what's that thing? It could be saving money. I'm going to be honest and say, I've been working on a book for 20 years. And my sons and my husband are like, when in the world is this thing going to be done? Okay. I've had my sisters edit it. I've had friends edit it. I've been in writing circles. It's done. Just get it out. I need to birth it. So I'm challenging myself on the air to get this thing done.
You got it, sister. You got it.
And my cousin, Gwen Green, I don't know if you're listening, Gwen, you might listen a few days from now, but invite me to one of your groups. And yes, I'll read some excerpts. So
invite yourself to one of the groups.
Yeah.
There you go. I know a publisher. If you need a publishing company, we're going to get it. Sister.
I've got to get this book done. I've got to put it to bed, put it to rest. Yes. So that's my challenge. My Dare to Be You challenge is get the book done.
Good.
Love it.
Good.
Love
it. I started on my one of my Dare to Be challenges back in April. I got my little self on a plane and flew over to Amsterdam. Yeah. So for me, just a little background, I used to be absolutely frightened, just scared to death to fly. And it wasn't that long ago. But what between, and you both don't realize this too, I may have mentioned it to one of you, but by observing my siblings, whether it's you two, my brother, just some of the challenges I've had, I've been able to reflect on how you all have overcome some of your challenges or just watching your journey. And I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it too. So seeing Paula get on those planes time and time again and fly to Africa and wherever she's going, I'm like, you know what? If Paula can do it, I can do it too. I had a couple of miscarriages, in the midst of having children, but from seeing your journey, Adrianne, with Matthew, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be afraid to try it again. God's got me and I'm going to be okay. And then just with my sobriety journey, just seeing that challenge overcome, that was helpful for me. So for me, it's just going to be continuing to put myself out there, live life, it's challenging out here being a divorced female. I'm going on 9 years divorced, so that coincides with my sobriety. But just not being afraid to date myself. You know, I've tried the dating
Yeah.
field. It's a little messy and crazy out here. So it's like, you know what, if I want to go somewhere and have a nice meal or just take myself to a concert, then I'm going to do that and build my female relationships, that network. So those are some things I'm going to continue to dare myself to be this summer.
Marvina, I really want to applaud you on the dating yourself and going out by yourself. The reason is because I think a lot of us, especially women, have a hard time doing that. You know, just going out to a nice restaurant and enjoying a meal, enjoying that time alone, savoring that moment, because sometimes we think, well, this looks kind of weird. But it's not. I'm actually seeing more and more people do it.
Yes.
But I think to be intentional about doing it says a lot. And it says that you're willing and ready to enjoy life, how it presents itself.
Right.
Whether you're with someone or whether you're not.
And it's helped me learn a lot about me. It's like, how can I expect someone else to be able to know me and do things that I like if I don't even know what that is?
Yes.
Oh, that's powerful. That is powerful. I love that. You're right. Because how do you know yourself if you're not willing to spend time by yourself?
Exactly.
I love that. That's awesome. And Paula?
My big, I guess, dare and wanting to be bold is, quite frankly, embracing moments. I think in life, you know, we do kind of sometimes set these really big goals for ourselves, which are important, but we lose sight of the present moment and what the present moment is offering to us. And so
I'm not going to let you get away with that. So this summer in the Dare to Be You challenge, name that thing.
Well, for me, I mean, so like I said earlier, it's preparing for this road walk, as it will be for me.
Yeah.
And really, it's embracing what comes along with that. There are things that I need to do to prepare myself physically for that. And so say be present. You know, it's an opportunity as I'm building up to those 6 miles.
Yes.
That as I'm walking, I'm really present in my body. I'm present in my surroundings. That I'm present with, I think, all of the challenges that come with it. So I really don't want to underestimate that, because I think we do lose sight sometimes of the beauty of what's happening in any given moment.
Yeah, we do.
And, you know, the other thing is the time that I do spend, and being much more intentional, by the way, in doing that. I am pretty busy. I hate to say that word, but I guess unavailable is a better word because of my travels.
Right.
I'm not spending as much time with the people that I care about as I would like to.
Right.
And it's really important in enjoying those moments and being present in those moments and not allowing like the things that are coming in the future to get in the way and distract me from really embracing that.
I like that. And I like what you said about preparing for the walk.
Yeah.
Because for you, that is a significant challenge.
Right.
And I want to, as we're kind of winding down, we have about 10 minutes, talk about words that mean something to us. That's another thing I think in this Dare to Be You challenge is there's perhaps a word for all of us that we cling to that will move us forward, right? And one of the words I love is intentionality, or being intentional. And it's okay if we all have the same word because we're sisters and we think alike.
Right.
But I want to, as we close, talk about a word that means something to us as we're looking at moving forward in that whole being brave and being bold. So Marvina, what is your word?
It is intentional. That's been my word, I want to say, for a few years now, because just doing things on purpose, that's how you get it done. If I wake up, like sometimes I'll wake up and I just want to lay there, but it's like, nope, you're going to get up, we're going to have an amazing day. It's like setting that tone for yourself and allowing you to do those small pieces to reach your goal, right? So yeah, it's just being intentional about my thoughts, being intentional about how I'm living my life, what I'm eating, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking. Because for me, I can overthink some stuff. Y'all know that.
Yeah.
So it's being okay with acknowledging that I'm an overthinker, but saying, okay, I thought about this. Now it's time for that thought to leave.
Right.
So yes, just being very purposeful and mindful.
I like what you just said. You said something about, oh, this thought popped into my mind. Okay, it's here now. It's got to go.
Right.
Because sometimes we hold on to negative thoughts for way too long.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can have a beautiful day and someone says something to us. We've gone to a restaurant and the person might have said something out of the way. And we hold on to that all day long, even though our experiences for the day have been
amazing.
Positive.
Yeah.
So being intentional about letting go of the negativity, that's huge.
Yeah.
Paula, what's your word?
Of course, I love that word, intentional. Another word that I'm thinking about, though, is also attentional. So there's intention and there's attention. And I really think for me, it's continuing to tune in.
Yeah.
And having that ability to pay attention to what is happening. I mean, I'm thinking about you, Adrianne, and how the fact that you're paying attention to your body right now is allowing you to take control of things that you're experiencing. And I don't think we pay attention. And when we don't pay attention, we miss really important things.
Yes.
So I'm really trying to be much more tuned in that way.
I agree with that. And so just for people who are out there, I've missed a couple of shows the last couple of months because I've had some health challenges, things that I'm dealing with, like many of us deal with health challenges. But to your point, Paula, when we're too busy, sometimes we ignore what our bodies are saying to us. We poo-poo it. And the other thing is we don't advocate well for ourselves.
Right.
People will tell us something and we're just like, oh, okay, it's that. But really we need to, especially as Black females who are getting older, really need to be advocates for ourselves, women in general.
Yes.
We are nurturers and we give so much to everyone else and we don't give to ourselves. And as I tell people, when you're on a plane and something happens, who do the mask?
Put your own on
get the
first.
mask first. Don't give it to your baby, give it to yourself so that you can then be effective in helping your children, right? So that is important.
Yeah.
The word, and I'm going to cheat y'all. I'm going to say two words. Grace and gratitude.
Oh, yes.
Gratitude, because when you wake up in the morning, if the first thing you focus on is all of the negative stuff you got to do that day, that's where your mind's going to stay. But if you wake up and you say, thank you, God, for allowing me to be here in my right mind and in my body, however my body is working today, thank you.
Yes.
Then that sets your mind on all the positives and not the negatives. And then grace. Grace allows you to be compassionate towards others, to realize that the same forgiveness you want for yourself is the same forgiveness that you extend to others, because you don't know what they're going through.
Right.
You don't. So those are the words. Before we go, first of all, I want to say thank you to my sisters. I love them dearly. They are amazing. We had an awesome trip to Arizona a few years ago. We went to the Grand Canyon, and that meant a lot to me because it showed how we attack things, Paula, like she said, she struggles with some physical things going on, but man, she was bound and determined to make that trek, and it was awesome, and she loved it. She came back a little sooner, but man, she was hanging in there, and it was awesome. Marvina and I went down, had a hard time coming back up, but but it was great and we stayed in a hotel, and it was interesting how we loved each other, and then we get on each other's nerves. That's what sisters do. But I am so grateful to have you all in my lives. You're my best friends, and I love y'all.
Wow.
I love y'all.
Yeah. Grateful. Yes.
But I want to read something as we close. This is dedicated to everyone who's out there listening and willing to be a part of the Dare to Be You challenge. And this is to God. I praise you for the life that stirs within me. I praise you for the bright and beautiful world around me. I praise you for the earth and sea and sky, for hurrying clouds and singing birds. I praise you for the work that you have given me to do, for all you have given me to fill my hours of leisure. I praise you for my friends and my family. And I praise you for music and books and good company and all harmless and delightful pleasures. God, we thank you for everything that you have done for us. And we even thank you for the challenges, because through the challenges, we learn to be faithful. And we learn that our strength comes from you. And we're able to then live bravely and boldly to show how awesome you are, to be better friends and lovers and sisters and daughters and all those things that you have created us to be. I love y'all. And I think that our producer wanted to get a quick picture of us holding up mugs. So for our audience, just please forgive us for a moment while we hold up our mugs so that she can get a great picture of us. All right. To everyone out there, we hope you join us for the summer challenge, Dare to Be You. We're going to be going throughout the summer checking in. Would love for you to be a part. Tell us how you're going through things, how you're navigating life, and you can be an inspiration and a motivation to others. And the sun is coming out, and as I always end, gotta run.
Bye.